A lot of us, all of us come from some form of dysfunction. And so we don't really know how to do connection very well. Sorry, I'm getting messages. I'm getting distracted. The struggle is real today. You know, there's just days where you're like in a flow and everything is just going. And then there's days where you're like, my new expression for days like today, or like moments where it's just not flowing, is feeling like a cat trying to cough up a hairball. And you're just like trying to hack the day through. Yeah. Back to what I was saying. Thanks for your grace today. I'm just laying here snuggling with my puppy, which I really need right now. I need snuggles. Sarah Lee, I hope it's okay that I said your name, who is a longtime friend and very dedicated supporter of the Blossoming Beauties channel. She leaves love and messages. Just binged watched, apparently, a bunch of the videos and left a bunch of comments, and it kind of filled me back up a little bit, and I feel a little bit like encouraged. And I was like, you know what? I am gonna film a video, but I actually don't know that I can actually share everything that was on my heart for today from this position, because it feels too relaxed. And I get passionate, you know how I get, so maybe I need to move. My name is Tanya, if it is your first time to the channel, and this is the Blossoming Beauties channel. And this space is a space where we are all about equipping and empowering women to live our most beautiful lives ever, which, you know, is authentic and real and powerful and beautiful and full of joy and peace and love and intimacy and rest. Rest is important. I'm gonna snuggle for a little bit longer and then go reposition myself, and I'm just gonna get it done. I'm gonna get it done. Thank you, Sarah Lee. I'm gonna leave a link in the description below for it's called the Love Language Test. And this is something that I got introduced to in my late teens, early 20s. It's just been in my world culture for most of my life at this point. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there was actually a study done on these infant orphans forever ago, and they took all of these infants in an orphanage, and they made sure that all of their core basic needs were met. So they were fed, their diapers were changed, but they were not shown any emotional or physical affection, no physical touch, no eye contact. So their physical body's needs were met, but their soul, their spirit were completely neglected. And what happened was these infants died. I know it's cruel. I remember the first time that I heard this years ago. It was extremely shocking, and I was like, there's so much wrong with that study that they did. But the lesson in it for us is invaluable. I don't know why we think that we don't need connection, why we try to convince ourselves even in some way that we don't need connection, or why we try to keep people at a certain distance. Or the truth is a lot of us just don't really know how to foster healthy connection. We weren't really taught necessarily. Maybe it wasn't modeled between our mother and our father growing up. Not myself. My parents are still married, but a lot of us come from homes where our parents were divorced, and, you know, or there was like an emotionally absent mom or dad. And it's just the reality of the world that we live in. It's not to shame or condemn anybody. It's like, it's just reality. But what do we do with that? Oftentimes we just reproduce who we are, and we are reproductions of who they are, and we just continue to reproduce the cycle. We were created for connection. We are hardwired for the need of meaningful, genuine, intimate connection with others. And if we're fortunate in our childhoods, we discover that with our mother and our father, and we learn how to do healthy relationship and healthy connection in our family unit. But a lot of us come from broken homes. A lot of us, all of us come from some form of dysfunction. And so we don't really know how to do connection very well. I remember I grew up in a pretty loving home. Like, I have pretty solid parents, you know, but I remember in my early 20s just being very prayerful about this and having this moment of realization where I was like, I don't really know what love is. Like, I know what like the media makes love out to be. I know what people say love is. I know like the love that I was modeled, you know, but for me as a woman of faith, it was like, God is love. Like I needed my box of what love was to be like expanded, you know? And I just started this pursuit in my early 20s of really wanting to understand what is love, because love is many things to many people. So it's the same thing with connection. It's like, well, what is connection? Connection is a sense of being known and knowing another. And it is like a bridge that binds you together. It's intimacy. You know, they say into me see. It's where you're allowing your true self to be seen. And you really can only be as intimate with others as you've developed self-awareness with yourself. That is one tip that I'm going to give you right now. Like if you want to foster genuine connection in your relationships, the number one place to start is your relationship with yourself. Because a lot of us do not truly know who we are at our core. We know who we've become. We know what we've become. We know what we do. We know the roles that we fill. But at the core of who we are, who we came into this world as, underneath all of life's experiences, we actually are really disconnected from ourselves. So you can't foster healthy connection with others if you're disconnected from yourself, because there's a part of you that's in hiding. And chances are, if there's a part of you that's in hiding, it's hiding for a reason. There was probably some form of pain that caused you to go into hiding. And so there is connected to that hiding, shame, or fear. Fear is the number one thing that will come against genuine connection. If we are afraid of being known, if we are afraid of being seen, if we're afraid of being rejected, if we are afraid of being hurt, if we are afraid of being betrayed, if we are afraid, we will withhold a part of ourself. And actually what some people will do is when the minute you start to get too close to them, they will subconsciously create conflict. Not even really aware of what they're doing, but they just need to create some kind of chaos because now you're getting a little bit too close for what they feel safe with, which is distance. There's a level of distance that is needed to be maintained in order for them to feel safe in a relationship, but that very distance is going against their nature, which is longing for connection. So it's really important that we go after connection. And in this time that we're living in where everything is coming to a head, and it's not like it wasn't like this. It's just really coming like to a head. Everything is just getting exposed right now. There's just been so much hostility and so much division and a lot of unhealthy, destructive conflict that has been stirring up this year because people have such opposing views about what is going on and what they feel about it. And so when we don't know how to connect, when we don't know how to conflict in a healthy way, then what happens is it creates a greater divide and a greater disconnect. Another thing that comes against connection is distraction. We will hide behind distraction because it feels safer. And the number one place outside of like work and to-do lists and all that kind of stuff where I see people choosing to disconnect from the ones that they are around is their phones. We are so often more connected to our phones than we are with the very people that are sharing the same space as we are. There was a study that said that we are the most connected through internet. We are the most connected we've ever been, and yet at the same time, we are the most disconnected we've ever been, because it's a lot easier to just scroll through social media than to have a deep, engaged, meaningful conversation. Also, this kind of goes into the whole patience thing. The average American has an attention span of 8 seconds. So how deep can you really go in 8 seconds? Like if I only have an 8-second attention span for you, I'm not going to be able to track with you while you're sharing and processing about your day. I'm not going to be able to track with you if you're unpacking and sharing about some past pains that you've been through. I'm not going to be able to have the attention span to actually sit and engage with you and have a conversation with you. So there's that. So I say get off your phone. I've actually been seeing this year, they do have these like cell phone cells. It's like a prison cell for your cell phone, and you can lock your cell phone in there for a set amount of time. And if you guys saw the documentary, The Social Dilemma, on The Social Dilemma, they used that example too during the family dinner. They put their cell phones in this like lockbox. I say try to get off your cell phone as much as you can. I know that a lot of you guys have been sharing like, I'm sick of scrolling. This is good. It's good. We don't want to be slaves to our cell phones, because if we're slaves to our cell phones, we cannot connect and engage with the people that are right there with us. There is nothing that drives me more crazy. That's an exaggeration, but One of the things that drives me super, super crazy is when I see people together and they're together, but they're all in their own little worlds on their cell phones. So fear will come against connection. Distraction will come against connection. Short attention spans will come against connection. So connection is something that we have to actively choose to develop within ourselves so that we can then develop it in our relationships with others. How do we grow in connection other than addressing any areas of fear within ourselves, what we are afraid of, and working those through with a counselor or a life coach, whatever your process of that looks like, of working through the lies you've believed, the beliefs you've established, the vows you've made. I will never let anybody hurt me again. I will never love a man because this is not Tanya's story, but I will never love a man the way my mom loved my dad because my dad left her and she was crushed and she never recovered. I will never let that happen to me. Again, that's not my story. That's an example. But we experience pain, trauma, and loss in our childhoods, and that little inner child in us that wants to self-preserve and self-protects experiences the pain and then protects itself by creating judgments and vows. And then we grow up into these adults, and now we're just kind of living out this life where we are subconsciously trying to protect ourselves from the pain that we vowed we would never allow ourselves to experience. But oftentimes we still experience pain because we're not connecting. We're not living in intimacy. We don't actually know what real love is, because wherever there is fear, there is a lack of love. Fear and love cannot go hand in hand. So you ultimately have a choice. What are you going to let rule you? Are you going to give into fear? Are you going to be honest enough with yourself to acknowledge when you're fearful? And are you going to be willing to be vulnerable and engage that fear, dismantle that fear, and then choose to be motivated by love instead, which we have to discover what true love is, right? Love. When we love somebody, we choose to lean in. We choose to lean into the discomfort. We choose to show up. We choose to make sacrifices. We choose to do these things because we have an overflow of love to give. And we want the person that we're in relationship with to know, hey, I see you. I want to know you. I choose you. And this is not just in romantic relationships. This is with parents and children. Children want to hear that from a parent. I see you. I want to know who you are. I want to discover who you are. And I choose you. I will choose you every day. I choose you. There's a sense of security that our hearts acquire when we hear those words and when we feel those affections from another, especially in like a marital relationship or a parent-child relationship. But in friendship, even in work relationships, we can love. We're called to love everybody if we're believers. Love is not sexual. It's not romantic. Love in its purest form is just this unconditional overflow of generosity towards another, of acceptance, of support. So when you choose love, you're dismantling the fear in another, because now another person is starting to feel safe. I'm safe with this person. So when you start bringing those walls down that you've both erected to self-protect, that's when you have a shot at starting to build connection in the relationship. We're going to talk about the 5 love languages. I just want to give you this as like one little starting point, because this is really deep and we could probably talk about this for a long time, like many videos worth. But just for today, if you're feeling a lack of connection in your life and in your relationship, other than working on developing your own sense of self-awareness and emotional health and maturity, because sometimes we act like kids. I've been there. I was like 27 years old and I would get triggered and revert back to the 4-year-old, so we've all been there if we're going to be honest about it. But once you start working on that, another element that you can implement into your life and into the relationships that you're in, again, romantic or non-romantic, is the 5 love languages. And so a brief overview, because I've mentioned these before and I actually got really good feedback from some of you guys. You were like, man, I hadn't thought about that in a long time. This is a really good thing to live conscientious of in all of your relationships. How do people experience love? How do we receive love, and how do we communicate love? So there's actually several books available on the love languages that you can read. There's for parents, for couples, for singles. There's all of the books. But really quick, a quick overview of the 5 love languages. There's words of affirmation. That's why it means so much to me when I get comments from you guys. There's quality time. Quality time is not quantity time, it's quality time. It's eye contact, it's expressing interest in the person that you're with, it's being present, offering them the gift of your presence. So it's not like just being in the same room or just spending a lot of time with each other, but you're not connecting. It's leaning into the person that you're with is quality time. So there's words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch. Physical touch is not sexual, but it's just a little squeeze on the shoulder or a rub on the back or a scratch on the head, just some form of physical, a hug, just physical touch. People just need a physical touch fix. And if they don't get their physical touch fix in a relationship, they start to feel disconnected. They start to feel anxiety in the relationship. And if you don't know that physical touch is their love language, you're like, what is wrong with you? I totally love you. And they might not even know that physical touch is one of their own love languages. This is why it is so important to discover who we are. But if they knew that, then they could say, hey, I just need like a hug. Can I get a hug from you? Hey, can you hold my hand? If you withhold physical touch from a physical touch person, it causes them pain. Just like a words of affirmation. If you're critical towards somebody who is a words of affirmation person, your words are sharp. So whether you're singing their praises or you're criticizing them, it's going to go in. So knowing how people receive love is really integral in fostering healthy connections because you can be mindful of it. Another one is gifts. Doesn't have to be expensive gifts. It's thoughtful gifts. It's, hey, I was out and I saw something and it made me think of you. And it communicates, I thought of you, I know you, I value you. And then acts of service. Acts of service, a lot of moms will have acts of service as a love language when their littles are little because they're just overwhelmed with how much there is to do. And if the dad comes home and he helps take out the trash or helps give the kids a bath, then the mom is just like, oh, I feel so supported by you. I feel loved. Thank you. Words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, gifts, acts of service. These are 5 different ways. And think about it. Take some time and think about when people do these things, which one makes you feel the most known? Which one makes you feel the most valued? Which one makes you feel the most connected? Which one makes you feel the most loved? And then have this conversation with the people in your life. Ask them, hey, what is your love language? Because if you are constantly singing somebody's praises, but they're an acts of service person, they're not going to feel loved. And you're going to be like, I tell you all the time that I love you. And they're going to be like, yeah, but you never do anything for me. And then this is where unnecessary conflict comes into play. So it's really important that we take time and invest in the connections that are meaningful in our lives. We can't take these people for granted. We have to communicate value. We want them to feel, if we love them, we want them to feel loved. I will say this as I close. You are responsible for you. I am responsible for me. So I will share about my life as an illustration, but I want you to think about how you can relate to this because our circumstances might be different. I am a 37-year-old single woman. I do not have a husband to snuggle with. Physical touch used to be one of my top love languages. The last time I took the test, that was one of my top 3. It wasn't on my top 3 this time. And I think it's because I've had to adapt. I can't. I'm a 37-year-old woman who's been single for 6 years and chooses to practice a lifestyle of purity, and which means I gotta have some boundaries with physical touch. And I am kind of physical touchy with my friends, but it's if I was in a relationship with my man, you best believe physical touch would be a big one. But I've had to discover how to manage me because I'm responsible for my own love tank. In relationships, both parties come in with their love tank, and you want to make sure that you're making investments or like a bank account. Am I investing into this relationship? Am I making deposits into this relationship, or am I constantly making withdrawals? Because when we feel like you're just constantly making withdrawals, that's when resentment comes in. That's when fear comes in. That's when conflict comes in. So another way of being intentional about building connection is making sure that you're intentional about making deposits. And a great way to do that is through the love languages. So I'm responsible for me. I'm responsible for making sure that my tank is full. It is not my husband's job. It is not my children's job. It is not my parents' job. It is not my sister's job. It is nobody else's job but me. I am responsible to manage me. And I am also responsible to love those who are in my life and to serve them. Now, ideally, you're in relationships where there is a flow of reciprocity, where you have two people taking responsibility for and managing themselves and then investing out of the overflow. So you just have two overflowing people with lots of love to give. Like, that's the goal. And it might take time to get there. But I hope that some of the stuff that I shared with you guys gave you some tangible things that you can kind of reflect on and then implement into your life. Coming into the holiday season, you guys, let's really focus on the relationships that we have. Let's really focus on the connections that we can foster, because that is what is the most important thing. You know, money comes and goes, jobs come and go, this life will come and go, but it's the relationships that we have. It's our family, it's our friends, it's the people in our communities that we can serve. This is how we make the world a more beautiful place, because everybody needs connection. So, yeah. That's it for today. I'll see you again soon.